to be here this evening, and I'm probably much more excited than all of you in seeing the beautiful young ladies here today. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, which of course is the South, and I lived there until I was 8 years old. And I was living with my grandmother at the time, and when she passed away, unfortunately, um, I moved with my mom to Detroit, Michigan. And while in Louisiana and going to school, my first schooling was in a Catholic school. And my grandmother decided that that would be the very best education that I could get. Because at that time, we were colored. We've had a lot of names over the years, and that at that time, we were coloreds. And the school that I would have gone to would have been the colored school. I don't know why my grandmother chose to send me to the Catholic school because we weren't Catholic. We actually were Baptist. But I think she felt that the education would probably be a lot better. And she actually was really right because when I was when I was 8 years old, I actually was already in the sixth grade, and which was a little bit advanced. But I always tell people I think the reason that I was so advanced is I don't know if I was any smarter than anyone else, but I love school. And I think something that you love, you tend to put more of yourself into it. And from the day I started school until my last day there, and my last day there was probably just several years ago because I volunteered in the classrooms for probably the last 30 plus years, which is a little bit after I was in school myself. My original career, what I thought I was going to be, was a teacher. And I've always loved children. I still do. And I just thought it would just be a great time for me to stay involved with young people. I have three grandchildren of my own, one grandson and two granddaughters. My oldest granddaughter just graduated USC a couple of, well, it's now almost a couple of years ago. And she actually wants to be in the music field. And I said, "Are you really sure?" Because it can be a very difficult field. In the South, when I was there, my grandmother made it very, she made everything fun. In terms of when we went to the movie theater and we had to sit in the balcony, I thought that that was like a pleasure. I didn't know that we had to actually sit in the balcony. I thought that this was her choosing, the seat for us. And so if you're a young child and you're sitting the first row of the balcony, you can see everything, you can see the movie, but you can also see the people down below. And it was fun. When we got on the bus, we had to go to the back, but the best seat on the bus is the back seat because you can just, while it's going, you can just roll around and just have so much fun. At least for me, I thought it was fun. And in terms of the water fountains, were two. One was white and one was colored. And I will tell you, the first time that I saw that sign and was able to read, I thought that it being colored, we were going to have this colored water coming out, red, blue, green, whatever. So I was a little bit disappointed to the fact that, it's just plain old white water. So when we did move to Detroit, it was a little different because they didn't have those fountains. It was pretty integrated, in terms of your classrooms. Um, it seems like every classroom I was in, though, I was pretty much in the minority in terms of if they had four, let's say four fifth grades or sixth grades uh, in my classroom, it would probably be me and a few other Blacks. And then one classroom would be all Blacks. And I would often think, well, why are they doing that? I still don't know the answer to that, but it was, so I was always like, it seemed separate from a lot of, my other peers or groups or whatever. And but it also might have been that I was really an easygoing kid, you know, and I was really shy, so I didn't talk a lot, you know, and as you can tell, I don't talk a lot now either, but my daughter says I do. But, you know, in terms of getting to Motown, which wasn't Motown, we met Mr. Gordy first. We met Mr. Gordy actually in 1957, and we had gone to an audition of which they actually really didn't like the group that much because they said there was already a group just like us, and that group was the Platters. The Platters had been, you know, they were well recognized and well known at that time, and we kept saying, well, we're not going to be like that group, you know, we're going to be more rock and roll where I'm not going to wear gowns, and you know, and the Platters were absolutely amazing, you know, because they did all these ballads and smooth harmony and all, which I admired very much, you know, their talent and their abilities. And so with that, of course, when the people that we went to audition for didn't like our group, so that's how we met Mr. Gordy. He was standing listening, and he came over, and he didn't initially just say, I'm Barry Gordy, even though had he done that, I probably still wouldn't have known who he was. But, you know, because this was before Motown. And he said, I like those songs that you're singing. He said, do you have any more? And Smokey, of course, spoke up and said, yes. And he said, how many? And he said, oh, I have 100. Because we had sang 5 original songs that Smokey had written. And that was our audition because we thought we'd have you know, like an extra advantage by singing original songs rather than songs that were already recognized. And he listened, Mr. Gordy. He listened to what we were saying, what we were singing, and very patient, you know. And he said to Smokey, he said, you know, every song has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, because, you know, if you're a young songwriter, you're kind of like all over the place. You know, your end might be your beginning, you know. So he said he'd like to work with us, and that his name was Barry Gordy. Well, Smokey was so super excited. I was like, well, who is this person? You know, well, Smokey always had, uh, he wanted always to be a songwriter. And what he did with that is that he would look at the magazine, which was called at that time Hit Parade. And with it being a magazine, it would list not only the songwriters, but also all the lyrics. And when that happened, you know, that was his favorite thing of doing, of looking at the songs, looking at the lyrics, and then trying to learn on his own. Because I was told that he started writing songs, I think he was about 6 years old, and I think he either did something for his first grade. And, you know, so he had that God given talent, you know, that some people do have. So that was kind of like our beginnings. And, you know, in 1958, we actually recorded our first song because Mr. Gordy was saying you need a record so people can know who you are. At that time, the group was called the Matadors, and I had a sister group called the Matadorettes because originally my brother Emerson Rogers was a part of the Matadors, but he decided to join the Army, and the guys always rehearsed in our basement, you know, at home, so we would hear what they were doing, and sometimes we would, you know, exchange vocals and all of that. So Smokey had asked me if I would, that's how I got to the rehearsal, me rather than my brother, because at that time they had shipped my brother off to Germany, so he didn't have an opportunity to do that. But years later, I also knew, because I asked him, I said, does this bother you? You know, you were in the group and I sort of like took your place. And he said, oh no, sis, you know, that's the way it was supposed to be. He said, because we 5 guys, we tried for a long time and nothing happened. So it was meant for you to be a part of that. So I felt good about that because I didn't want him to feel that, you know, I'd taken over basically.
Yes. Well, that sounds amazing. And I'm just thinking about one of the early uh, points that you make in your book. When you say little Claudette lived in Motown, it was a kingdom filled with music so sweet. people sang up on the rooftops and danced in the street. Little Claudette loved to sing. Did you always love to sing?
I always loved to sing. When I was 3 years old, my grandmother took me to the National Baptist Convention, and they stood me up on a box and allowed me to sing to the National Baptist Convention. I only remember just a little bit of that, because my grandmother, grandmother's always so proud of their children and grandchildren. And so she was like, oh my goodness, this girl, she sings like a little angel. But, that's coming from a grandmother's point of view. Did I sing like an angel? I don't know, probably not. But for her, it was great. And I always loved to sing. I think my hesitation was the fact that even though I would always sing, I'd sing in the choir, I would sing in church, I would sing, any time there was singing, and singing was something that you did in our neighborhood because, we didn't have, social media, and we didn't have cell phones and all the things that people have today. So one of the things that you kept yourself entertained was, getting together and singing. Like on one block, you might have 5 or 6 groups, that were coming together. And I was just so shy. I just didn't know how I was going to get on the, because they always wanted me to be the lead, to sing lead. And I'd be like, oh, no, 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 you sing lead. It's okay. It's okay. You do that. And because I know that the lead singer gets a lot of the attention, because everybody's viewing that person. And I've always felt that there's nothing better than people coming together and having harmony, because when you can blend, and people think that, when you do oohs and ahs, that it's just so simple and, it's just anybody can do that. Well, that's not correct. Anybody cannot do that. When you get 4 or 5 or however many people together, it has to, if you have 100 sopranos, that's to sound like one voice. It should sound all alike. One person shouldn't stand out, more than the others. And that's something that's not easy to do. So I really, I loved harmony then, and I still do today. I mean, if anybody is waiting, I'm ready to chime
Right. I was just thinking about what it's like to be a little girl who has this God given talent and has a grandmother that really saw your talent and clearly believed in you. How do you think that shaped your path and how you were then able to be shy and yet step up and play such an amazing role in the group?
Well, I think, you know, music becomes like your, and singing becomes like your alter ego. So once you step out from yourself and you begin to sing, it's almost like you become this other person. And while you're performing, it's like you're fine. But once you step off the stage, it'll be like, oh, my legs are shaking, and but I think for my grandmother, she I was the first grandchild, and she was so proud of me always in everything. I mean, you could see it in her eyes, the way she looked at me, and all the things that she would say to me. And I always felt like my grandmother should have been like a college professor because she had so much knowledge about everything. And she was a nurse, but she always told me, don't be a nurse, be a doctor. If you're going to do anything in the medical field, be a doctor because that's the one that makes the most money. And I'd feel like, well, I don't know if I want to do that because I don't know if I can like do surgery or whatever. But I think the confidence that she had in me helped a tremendous lot for me to do many things. I later on I joined the United States Marine Corps Reserves, and I became a sharpshooter. And it was like things I was never, even though I was shy, I was not afraid to try different things. Like when the kids were learning to swim, well, I wanted to go, to the school. We didn't have a pool, of course. And so I wanted to be able to learn to swim. And if it was something else, like if you're going to go ice skating or roller skating or whatever. I wanted to be able to do that. And if it was a concert, I definitely wanted to be there too. I remember one of the concerts that I went to, and it was at a place called the Madison Ballroom in Detroit, and Little Richard was there. And I tell you, I had never seen anything like that, because he was the first man that I actually saw that had full makeup on. He had the whole thing, and he was so super, super talented. And I'm like, oh my God, this is, it's great.
Mm.
And it's just so many things that I think if we as parents or grandparents can give that confidence to allow our children to know that it's okay, whatever you want to do, but just try and be the best at whatever field you tend to go
Yeah.
into, be the best that you can be. And I think that will help a lot for especially our young ladies. And I refer to our young ladies many times because I remember that when girls, you're seeing young girls, they're always seemingly, they want to compare themselves. Am I pretty enough? Am I tall enough, short enough? All the things that really don't count. Because it doesn't matter, what you look like or whatever, but whatever it is that you're choosing to do, just continue to do that. And remember to always love yourself, because I say that to my grandchildren all the time. Love yourself, because it's so important that you love yourself. Then others can tend to love you as well.
I
Because,
love that. Yeah, I really love that. And I was thinking about confidence. I was thinking that that's exactly it, that your grandma gave you the confidence because
yes.
you're pointing out so many things you tried that maybe you weren't sure you'd be great at, but you weren't afraid to try. And it makes me think about the confidence I got from my parents.
Uh-huh.
I also grew up in an environment where we were the only Black family, like in Woodland Hills in the early 70s. And it was hard being the only little Black girl and not seeing myself
Right.
reflected in my teachers and in the environment that I was in. But my parents really were so supportive. I remember, being followed at times in the grocery store and people staring, and I didn't quite know what that was about. But I believe that my parents just kept instilling in me that I was special and that I could do whatever I wanted to and put my mind to.
Mhm.
And I remember at times wondering if I was smart enough, or as you said, if I was tall enough. But when you can look to your parents and see them as your role models, and for me, I remember studying hard. I remember wanting more. I didn't exactly know all the time what that would mean.
Uh-huh.
And as I moved along in school and I started working harder and harder and I was getting good grades, I started to see a path for myself that I knew was, academia, or at least that I could be someone, that I could use my brains and my work ethic to make a difference.
Yeah.
So today, now that I have a PhD and I went to Stanford, I look back and I think it truly was the confidence that I received early on from my parents, and just believing that I could overcome challenges and make a difference. I wonder about times in your career, Miss Robinson, where it looked like maybe it wasn't going to be okay. That you made it though. Can you share some those experiences?
Those first few years, I was not certain if we were ever going to make it, because we had a 2 record deal with a company called the N record label. Because when our record was first was released, Motown didn't start, had not started yet. So therefore, um, the record was leased. It was called Got a Job, and it was leased to the N record label, which was a company out of New York. And what they did was they were known for producing records for like um, the teenagers, Frankie Lyman and the teenagers, and so many others. So we thought, oh, this is going to be great because we're going to like, really get a start and start making money and whatever, whatever. Well, at the end of that time, when they gave us I guess you say your royalty statement, and it was for $3.19. And that was for everybody. It wasn't like I had 319 and the other guys had 319. We had to divide that up because they said the money was used for expenses. I don't know what the expenses were, but whatever they were, that's our check. And that check right now is in the Motown Museum. So if you ever visit, you'll be able to see that was, it was not cashed, it was just, I mean, why cash, $3.19. And what were we going to do with that? And my thought was, maybe we might need to start another career because I don't think this is going to work because I had a job before and we made much more than that, even in an hour, even back in those days. And it was, I think right after that was 1958, and Motown started January of 1959. So, one of the things, and I repeat this story over and over again, is that what Mr. Gordy did, he had such faith and believed in us as a group because at that time it was just us, the Miracles. We had a name change so that it would suit all five of us. And what what happened was in terms of the record industry and all of that, it was like we also had been on the Chess record label with a two record deal because we're trying to find our way, but Mr. Gordy actually pawned his suits so that he would have enough money so that we could go into a recording session. And I just think that that had to be really admirable in terms of believing these five kids, are going to do something. And I think of that really often. Now it's been, I think, 63 years. And, I was only like maybe two and a half or something when I started. I don't know. They were all much older. But it's so wonderful to, look back and reflect and say, thank God we made it through because, let's just say for the people who really stopped, because Smokey and I actually were married in 1959 at the end of, after Motown began. And we actually had 6 weeks of commitments, in terms of us being able to travel. And after that, we had no dates at all. And it's like we're newlyweds, and what do you do? So what we did at that time, we ended up staying with his sister and his father. And his father lived upstairs, and it was like maybe 4 bedrooms up there, and we had like the front bedroom, and the dad had the back bedroom, and his sister had 10 children. So it was quite a lot going on, in the household, getting to know the family and all of that. And then trying to figure out what are you going to do? What is your life? What is going to take place? Because, you know, we don't have any money, not really, just, the little that we had put towards savings. And, when you're first getting married, most people, they spend most of what they had, trying to be cute and have negligees. And it was like, well, maybe we should have saved the money. But it was, it, I think the best advice that I could give to anybody is if there's something you really desire, you have a passion and a career and you're working towards it, just try to hone that, whatever it is, be it academia or, it's music or whatever field that you're going into, just continue that path and do the best that you know how to do each and every day. Just because you want to take a vacation, you got to think about, I need to continue so that I can improve each day what I'm doing, because a lot of people, they have musical talent in terms of, excuse me, they can play instruments, and you might become a songwriter, or maybe you're able to do all these things at one time, because you don't have to stop, and you don't have to, just because you're in music, it doesn't mean that you don't or cannot go into other fields. You might go into the medical field. It's so many things that are open and opportunities. And I know this has been really difficult, with the the COVID and the pandemic. It's stopped a lot of things. It's held a lot of people back. I have a lot of concern about our children doing virtual learning, because a lot of children and older people as well, they just don't have that gift of being able to maneuver around. They need the teachers, they need someone to be able to help them, and some children have learning disabilities and all of that. And I just hope, and my prayer always is, each day, is that somehow, some way, that our children can get back in the school, so our teachers and professors and all can help them, because sometimes parents can't help the kids. I mean, it would be great if they could, but sometimes you just can't. And,
Yes.
they had many of the parents, they have jobs of their own, and they had to sometimes give up those jobs so that, they could help their children be able to do their school, their virtual every day. And then that causes another problem of
Yes.
how are you going to take care of the family? Where's
Yes.
the income coming from? How is it going to, how are you going to have food for the week or the day even, and so many things that we have to think about and concern ourselves with. And I just, each night when I go to bed at night, sometimes I just lay there and I'll just be thinking all the changes that have happened, especially since I was a little girl. And because I think I told you, or maybe I didn't tell you, is that, when I was in the South, we didn't have an inside toilet. We had an outhouse. And it wasn't like some, people thinking now like it was a potty, one of those potty things,
Porta potty or something. Uh-huh.
it wasn't that. I mean, it was, where they would build a little, they make a hole and then they build around it and put a little house there. And that's where you'd go. And looking back on it now, I'm thinking, how did we manage that? And what
Yeah.
was, did it smell or whatever?
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that there was a struggle. It doesn't sound like it felt like a struggle. Even the segregation that you lived through and endured, it sounds like your grandmother had a way of elevating your experience. So it wasn't as hurtful in the moment.
Right.
I'm sure as you reflect back, we know that that's systemic racism and that's part of our history in this country. But it sounds like there was endurance, there was resiliency, there was determination. I'm thinking too about times in my own career,
Mhm.
even when I took over at St. Joseph Center, we uncovered $1 million deficit. And I, was only a month or two into the job.
Right.
And sort of that feeling like you got when you're thinking, we only have 6 gigs and what are we going to do? And you start to worry, am I the right person for this? Do I have what it takes to make it? And I think that determination, that resiliency, and certainly for me, that feeling of purpose that God is, with you through the tough times, and that He's going to bring us through, and that we're going to live out that purpose. For me, I really felt that I was purposed to lead St. Joseph Center, even though I wasn't quite sure that I had what it was needed, that feeling of, do I have what it takes? But I think when you know God, maybe you don't have all that it takes inside, but with the power of God, you can make it and you can be successful. And I'm hearing that in your story, that sense of determination and going through the struggle. For people of color, it's difficult. And I think the young people, as you said, people of color struggled, you know, in a way that is hard to describe and fully define since the pandemic hit. And there's a disproportionate impact that we're seeing on Black and Brown communities. And as you said, it has and will affect our young kids. And we
Yes.
will need to step up and
Uh-huh.
really make sure that we close those learning gaps that I think have grown through this very difficult time. I wonder though, as you've written this amazing children's book, did you have a favorite book as you were growing up? Did you have a favorite children's book that you read a lot and enjoyed?
I don't know if it was a favorite because I would like read a lot of books, and because my grandmother was always putting another one in my book in my hand, like read this. But I think a lot of things though that we read in our household at that time was like the Bible. My grandmother and my great uncle was the pastor of the church that we attended, and my grandmother was the secretary. So we kind of went to church almost every day. And sometimes I'm asked the question, well, if you were like in the Baptist church and then all day long, 5 days a week, you're going to mass, was that a conflict?
Mm.
I don't know if it was because I was young or something. It wasn't a conflict because we were all talking about God, each one, so it wasn't like we've got to separate or segregate that, now we go to this church and it was to me at that time, it really seemed all the same, except the nuns and the priests, of course, dressed differently. But that was the only difference that I saw because it was like forever and ever. Your one common thing that you had was God, and she was definitely a godly woman. I mean, she lived by what she preached and what she taught is what she was. It wasn't like she was one person when you see her in church and then another person at home. She was that person forever, all the time.
I love that. I've done some work with kids who grew up in foster care. And some kids in kinship care were raised by family members, but not a biological mom or dad. And we have one person that just sent us a question. And her question is, what happens if you don't have family? What happens if you don't have a mom or a grandparent or really anyone to turn to? And I wonder what your thoughts are on that. And I would just say, I'm going to let you take it after I take a stab at this, is to say that I've found that you don't necessarily have to have family that you're related to by blood, but there are people that you will find in your life, and sometimes they're teachers, sometimes they're counselors and social workers, principals, wonderful mentors, and people that will believe in you, church members, folks that will adopt you and be there by your side. I really believe we're not meant to be here alone, but sometimes we don't have family that we're born into, but family that we find or that finds us, a tribe that we build out and that we lean into. I wonder what your thoughts are for young people who don't have a grandma like you had.
Well, I know I was blessed, extremely blessed to have a grandmother the way that she was. And what I'd say is that we can all do a little something to step up and help the community and the children. I found my way is as an older person of going into the classroom, asking the teacher, can I help? Can I help out? And they would sometimes, they kind of look like, because some teachers don't want parents or in their classroom because they think you're going to be in there trying to tell them how to teach, and that wasn't my purpose. I wanted to be able to be any support that I could be for her. So maybe if she needed something either typed or copied or whatever that she needed, then or he, because occasionally we did have a few guys, that I would be there to assist in that, because I felt really fortunate that I didn't have to work at that point and that I could be of some service, to them. And I think in a community, there's always something that all of us can do. If you're not fortunate enough to have parents, because sometimes parents may not be even your best guide. There may be other people in the community that can actually do more for you than I know. I have a friend that told me that in her household, for her household, her particular household, that her teacher, one of her teachers, would go and come and pick her up and take her to school because the mom was not as, I guess she wasn't doing the job that we would have liked to have seen her do. And this teacher would come, I mean, to think that a teacher would take time out to come and pick you up, knowing that perhaps you couldn't even get to school every day unless she assisted in
Mm.
that way. So I think each and every day, every one of us can do something. I mean, some people, maybe they don't work with children well because that's not their gift, but there are other things that you can do, many other things. And so, whatever it is, if we can just be there for each other, whether you're the biological mother or if you're, the adopted parent or whatever you may be, it's like we can all help one another because it takes more than it, as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. And
Yes.
that I just say that we all need that. I mean, having the support, even though I had a great, wonderful grandmother, there were other people that were part of my life story as well, that were right there, for me and encouraging me and saying, you can do this. Because as I said, I was this little girl, I wasn't like the little girl that just went in a corner or something. I mean, I was active, but I think what I did mainly is listen. I was always listening to what the older people were saying. So
I
I could
love
hear
that.
their stories.
I wanted to just reiterate something you said about listening. And sometimes when you're alone, it's hard to reach out and ask for help. And I think that people who don't have family have to take the risk and reach out and ask for support and
Mhm.
build that community. So that's one other thing I would tell someone who doesn't feel like they have that built-in biological network.
Yeah.
Can we shift a little bit to um, the workplace, the environments that we find ourselves working in or volunteering in? What do you think, various organizations, how can we improve the workplace setting to be more supportive of women of color? What are the things that you think we should be doing better?
Well, I think our workplace and wherever it is, I think that you need to think outside of the box and outside of yourself. Because if you're going to help others, it shouldn't be about me. It should be about what can we do to help them, whoever they may be. Because maybe we're at a certain stage where we've been, maybe we've had our career, or maybe we're still doing our career. But there's so many people that we can perhaps just encourage them to allow them to be what they want to be. Because sometimes, when we're people of color, we don't think that there are careers that we can do. Because I've often heard that sometimes when the kids are taking tests and they're saying, "What would you like to be?" And then the counselor may say to them, "No, you can't be that. Why don't you just be a gardener? Or why don't you be, you know, um, I don't know, I shouldn't say the garbage man, but the man that picks up, the garbage, which is actually a very admirable job, and they make a lot of money." So it's not something that, that you have to look down upon. Because my thought always is, as long as you're doing an honest job of whatever it is, that's fine. You don't have to be a doctor, lawyer, as they would say a long time ago when I was growing up, Indian chief or whatever it might be. You just find what you want to do, what's going to make you happy. Because my thought was, if we're going to work, let's find a career that we can be happy about. If you're going to work every day, just think about, okay, when I get up, how am I going to feel getting to that place and meeting with others? If you're honest and it's a good job of whatever it might be, it's okay. You don't have to even have a title, just something that can make you, first of all, happy that you have a job and that you're going to get there, because we can't all be on the same level of whatever it is. If everybody was an entertainer, who would be left to come and see you perform? And in terms of, we all need plumbers, we need electricians, we need contractors, we need so many things. We need nurses, doctors, lawyers, all these careers that are open. And it's just like you have to think in your brain, what would I like to do? And it's possible that you can do all of that and more, but you just have to give it a try, because you don't know what you can do until you try it. If you're just thinking, I can't do that, I'll never be that, then you won't. But if you can just stay on that path and continue to have some sort of passion about what it is that you enjoy and that you like, because we all enjoy different things. We don't all like the same thing. And that's a great thing, because that makes the world go round. Because if we were all alike and we all wanted to do all the same thing, well, how much fun would that be? Not very much.
Yeah.
So, I would just say for each and every one of us, even today, I like to stay encouraged about something, and that I can enjoy. I mean, when this pandemic came, my daughter, of course, was trying to tell me things that she thought would keep me happy, because I like to be out. I like to, go and visit people and do all of that. And she was like, "Oh, no, 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 you're gonna get sick and whatever." And I was, so she bought me like coloring books. I guess coloring books for the persons past 21. And I tell you, I enjoyed it. I really thought, I mean, at first I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, because it had been so long. But then I looked at what I had done and I was like, I'm not really an artist. She is. I mean, she's really, really good at that, and her father was really, really good, at my son and I, we kind of fall a little short when it comes to, the artistic side, but
It sounds like you're open to new things, and
I,
it sounds like you're remaining really receptive to
I
learn.
I think so. And, I took a couple of like little quick, I won't even call them classes, but things that I could do that I hadn't done before, because they keep saying you got to keep that brain active and just keep, learn something every day, whether it's a new word or a new friend, or, I shouldn't say a new friend, but whatever it is that you're going to do, you'll find that there are people that really need sometimes just a little encouragement, and not only just an encouragement, sometimes people need a hug.
Yes, it's true. I mean, can we talk about encouragement a little? And I know that you are a very positive person and you have a really positive outlook. But times have been really tough for people through COVID-19, and we've seen that the pandemic has really shown us the cracks in our system and the tremendous disparities, as I mentioned before, the wealth inequities and systemic racism. And you even mentioned, the white fountain and the colored fountain. And some young people feel that even though those signs have gone away, there still is such divisiveness and such racism that we're still confronted with every day. What do you say to the audience about how we should think about the daily discrimination that some of us have to endure?
Well, you know, prejudice and racial inequities and racial bias and all these things have been around for a long time. But I think in my lifetime, how I had viewed it for the longest time until recently, because I too have been, as an older person, been a victim of racial prejudice. A friend of mine, we were all in a restaurant at in Beverly Hills, and as we were there, she's a person that knows like a lot of, celebrities and a lot of everything. So each person that came in, she'd say, Claudette, this is so and so and so, hey, how are you, whatever. And I think it was like three different people that had happened, friends of hers, uh, a hairstylist that was very famous, a designer, So the third person that came in was a police officer. And so he came in with this, I looked over and he was like standing there, with this like, "Rrr." And I'm thinking, well, what happened? What's going on? But I was waving and smiling, and I thought, well, she's going to introduce me to him, and then whoever he is, one of her friends or something. Well, come to find out, she's been a smoker of cigarettes forever, and the owners of the restaurant sometimes like they smoke cigarettes with her, which you're not supposed to do. I've never smoked cigarettes or any of the other ets or whatever, and but she had been smoking, and like on a patio on the side. But also at that time there was a law, and I think it still exists, that it was like $200 fine if you were smoking within, I think it was like 50 feet or 200 feet or something like that of the restaurant. But the owners of the restaurant had actually given her an ashtray for her because she did it all the time. So the guy, when he's the police officer, as he's sitting there looking at the two of us, someone said that I guess she had been smoking, right? He comes in, and who does he identify with? It's called sitting while black. And so, since I was the only black person in the entire restaurant, I guess he assumed it had to be me. And he's just like going like, with this rough, tough attitude. And I know, and the thing that people really sometimes don't realize, if someone has that kind of attitude or something that's going on, you don't like confront them. You just have to just wait, let them just rattle it off, whatever they've got to do, because that's how a lot of times people get really hurt. And they may take out their gun and say, you were doing something wrong, and then people are shot, killed, whatever. And so I waited for him to finish because he took that stance of, I'm the tough guy or whatever. And I'm looking because I'm trying to figure out, why is he even talking to me at all? And he looked at the girl, I guess, who had told him that somebody was smoking, and and so she's telling him all the time, give me the ticket. I was the one. I was the one. And he wasn't paying any attention. His eyes were focused only on one person, and that was me.
Yeah.
And this is only like 4 years ago.
Yes.
And he,
I think it's difficult when we continue to experience
right, right.
racial profiling.
And
And
he continued. And at the end, I asked him, I said, excuse me, officer, why did you just focus in on me? He said, no, I didn't. Anyway, making the story shorter, it was like, I was just, it was like I could not believe that in this time, we're talking about what I think it was 2014, 2015, or something like that, that this could be happening. And,
yeah,
we're older women, each one of us, and we're sitting there. And of course, we were properly dressed. So it wasn't like, we didn't have whatever. And I did make a police report and all, but the police officer actually, he retired that year.
I
So
think that's great that you made a report. that you stood up and acknowledged that you had been treated
Oh yeah.
properly. I think that's really great. I think so many of us can reflect on experiences of being followed in stores,
Hmm.
going maybe even to some of schools where our kids attend, and
Right.
walking in and maybe not even, being noticed, or, maybe not being treated the way other families. I mean, we've all had these horror stories. And there's times when I felt the need to say, well, if someone asked my name and I realized, wow, the only way they're going to really treat me fairly or recognize me is if I say my full name and add doctor. And I feel so bad when that's necessary, because I believe that those,
Hmm.
uh, you know, as your surname and putting doctor and telling people your whole life story shouldn't be necessary, that you should be treated fairly and that we should be treated equally. And I shouldn't have to be a doctor to be treated the way that one of my white friends is, who doesn't have a doctorate,
But I just want to say what a great accomplishment that you have achieved for yourself. And I honor you with that. And I'm just so proud to be hearing a part of your story as well. Because,
Well, thank you.
you
Thank
know,
you.
and I think it's such, it's something really good for our young ladies and young men to be able to see of things that can be achieved, and it's not all about music or sports or whatever, it's so many things and so many areas that we can go into and be very proud of our people collectively. And I just wanted to take the time to just say that to you.
I appreciate that. And, I admire you so much. And I know that you've had the struggles of a lifetime and so much success as well. And for you to be willing to share it in numerous forms. And now with the children's book, I just think it's awesome. One of our audience members says that she's lost two members of her family to LAPD.
Oh
And
wow.
she said that her biggest fear is that her two sons, when they leave the house, she's really worried about that. And she wonders what your biggest fear has been, being a parent of a Black male.
I would probably say probably all the concerns that especially Black parents have for their children. Um, it wasn't as difficult, and I hate to just use that as he, my son, he's Black, he knows he's Black and all that, but he's not dark complected. And so therefore, a lot of times they think that he's Mexican or something, which he does not look Mexican, but how people will want to put them in any category. But it was the same in terms of when you go outside, if you're any color that represents something that is a person of color, it becomes some difficult times. And because I guess society has just made it like that. I mean, I remember telling him as a little boy, when you go outside, you're always supposed to be respectful. Don't go out there, trying to like be as they want to be big and bold or whatever it is, because everybody doesn't know that you're a good kid. They're just looking at the color of your skin or what they think you are. And I think I'm hoping, I mean, each day I'm just hoping that things change, because out of all the people that I know, I'm probably, little bit on the senior side. And it's, I think that things change for a bit. I mean, that was my feeling. The 60s were, I thought, an absolutely great time that Blacks were able to do more than they had like in the past, being able to have their own businesses and so many other things that we did not have before. And then when the 70s came, what I saw was a transition into, it was slowly, the scale was sliding down. And now we're to 2021. And it's almost like we need to start all over again and get back to having a whole community, Because, you know, if you take the skin, you know, take off the outer skin, guess what? We're all the same. They would not know if you didn't have whatever color you are. Nobody would know what nationality, what anything you were. You know, when they ask for blood donations, they don't say, I only want them from whatever people. We don't want Black people or whatever. But
Yes.
it's a time where we all need to really stop, think, breathe, and think about how we can come together a little more. You know,
Yes, I think, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think you're right. And I think COVID has shown us that even though some communities have suffered more than others,
Unfortunately.
the affliction, once you have a family member in the hospital or someone contracts COVID,
Mhm.
then the racial differences, dissipate. It's just someone you love who's hurt, someone you love who you want them to get better and you want the best for them. And the fear that so many of us have experienced, you know, um, not being able to hug each other, not being able to celebrate together. Those are the things that keep us whole, and they're the things that we share across race and across class. We all value that feeling of togetherness, and I think that is something that we have to hold on to. Someone asked another question about what I might say to people who are raising children of color now. And I will say, well, I am raising children of color. I have a daughter who's at an HBCU, historically Black college in New Orleans, your hometown, Ms. Robinson, and she's at Xavier. And I have a 13-year-old who's at the Orange County School of Performing Arts. And
Nice.
it is not easy
No.
because my girls don't always see images of themselves that are inspirational or help them see who they can be. Certainly, they have me,
Yeah.
and they have all the beautiful women that are in my family and in my tribe, my circle. But also, as they spend time on Instagram and in these other spaces that I try to curtail, they're not always seen they're not always seen as what is the mainstream definition of beauty. So I'm always sharing with them uh, what we see as
Uh-huh.
beautiful and how our values are what I want them to hold on to. I want them to know that it's your inner beauty that is so important. I want us to encircle our kids of color to let them know that as they may very well be impacted by racism, and that there's an unfairness in that doesn't have to define them, that they don't have to sit and internalize that. We
Uh-huh.
want our kids to share those hurts with them, those disappointments. We want them to ask us if they feel like maybe they're being mistreated, if it's about race, to ask us to have those conversations, and to turn to us for comfort.
Uh-huh.
It isn't easy to be a parent raising a kid of color today, but
Absolutely.
we must partner with teachers. We must demand that our kids are treated properly at school. We need to be there like you were there, even if we're working parents in the schools and helping. There's so many teachers that desire that support. And when I felt like my kid came home a little sad, I've often reached out to their teachers, and I always will text them and send them flowers and become really a partner to
Uh-huh.
those teachers in those schools to make sure that they know I am 100% committed. I'm
Uh-huh.
100% on board to support my kid and to also support them as they're trying to teach and be, the best they can be as an instructor. So I really believe it's about partnering, and it's about, really supporting those kids. I believe we are just about out of time, but I know that we are going to be joined right now by MSMU's Black Student Union President, Summer Woods, and she's going to share now. So, Summer.
Thank you, Dr. Dr. Kalem for that introduction. And I also want to thank Ms. Robertson for sharing your story and your book. I know we all truly appreciate your words, your advice, your wisdom. So thank you.
Thank you.
For Every Woman by Angela Davis. This is for every woman that cries herself to sleep, that lies alone in bed at night, that stays awake, unable to sleep. This is for every woman that is scared of being hurt again, that has been left behind, heartbroken, that needs to be given something to believe in. This is for every woman that needs to feel wanted, that wants to feel desirable, that feels no one even cares. This is for every woman that has loved freely, that shows how much she cares, that accepts others for who they are. You are beautiful. Everything will be okay if you can believe in yourself. But most of all, please love yourself. So I hope you enjoyed that poem. For Every Woman by Angela Davis. And now I would like to introduce Mount St. Mary University's president, Dr. Ann McElhaney Johnson.
Thank you so much, Summer. Wow, what an evening. I have many thank yous to extend on behalf of Mount St. Mary's University. First, let me thank Kendra for opening the evening so graciously tonight and bringing us all into this conversation. So thank you for doing that. Summer, for your very moving reading of Ms. Davis's poem. Thank you. That was a perfect end to a wonderful conversation. I want to thank the psychology department for putting forth this event tonight as we celebrate Black History Month at Mount St. Mary's. And so I'm so grateful to the department for coming forward. And then I need to thank these incredible women who just spent their time with us so generously in what was a very moving and challenging in many ways, but also joyful conversation. So Ms. Robinson, thank you for sharing, first of all, for reading your wonderful book, Claudette's Miraculous Motown Adventure. It was just fabulous. So thank you for that. And also thank you for sharing your personal story. And you know, as I was listening to struggles and joy, and you shared both so honestly. And I know that means a lot to our community to hear your journey, because it's a very moving journey, and it's one that, you know, we really hold up with all you've accomplished. It was wonderful to hear as you talked about your life as an artist, as a woman in the business, from when the business was really getting going with Motown. That was incredibly moving to hear. But also, I think all of our community really appreciated your story about being a granddaughter, and being a mother and being a grandmother, and also as a Black woman in across so much history of the United States, and letting us all into what that intimate story has been for you, and the struggles and the accomplishments. So I thank you for your honesty and for and your generous spirit in being so open. And I also thank you for the excellent advice that you have provided. And I have taken note of it because we are always all still in development. And in terms of doing it your best, whatever it is, whatever your passion is. So thank you for that. And I know our students appreciate that. I also want to thank Dr. Valicia Adams-Kellum, who is a true friend to Mount St. Mary's. She shares her gifts generously with us in the classroom, and the faculty, as a faculty member in the Department of Psychology, and also now as a new member of our Board of Trustees. And so we're very grateful to Valicia as such a friend to us. I also should tell you that Dr. Adams-Kellum You all should know her work. And if you don't, I want every student here to go and look up St. Joseph Center, because this is a woman who champions truly the most vulnerable in our community through her leadership at St. Joseph Center. And so we're very proud to have her as a friend. And St. Joseph Center is another CSJ sponsored agency like Mount St. Mary's. And so the Sisters of St. Joseph founded that organization as they did our university. She's doing the work that needs doing, and we are here to support her in every way we can. So to these beautiful, smart, indomitable women, Ms. Robinson and Dr. Adams-Cohen, thank you. This has been an incredible evening. I'm so proud to be part of Mount St. Mary's and to welcome such role models and real examples of what a real life looks like, a life of purpose. So thank you both, and thank you all for being here tonight. And I think it is my honor to close this evening and to say we look forward to seeing all of you across this month of celebrations of the accomplishments and lifting up the stories of Black Americans who have made a difference in the history of our country, in the history that we all celebrate as a country. So thank you so much, and I hope you all have a very nice evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for allowing me to do this, but I also wanted to take time to say a special thank you to Angela, who was the one I believe that brought me in, and she has just been absolutely amazing. And now I'm seeing all these other amazing women that are young women that are just taking hold of the world and just adding so much to our world. And it's a great thing for me to see. And I appreciate being here, and I thank you all so very much. And I get to know more about Mount St. Mary's University. And again, you know, maybe one day I'll get an opportunity to visit, you know, when all this is over, so I can just say hi to each and every one individually. And again, thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart. And God bless you all, and stay safe.
Yes, loved meeting you. And thank you so much for my book. I love it so much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So great talking to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Summer, your poem was excellent. You did a great job.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.